What's up, everybody? It's Carpo again. Let's talk about legal weed for a minute. Cannabis, marijuana. I've been an advocate for, I should say, the freedom to consume cannabis as long as I can remember, since I was at least 15. So over the last 25 years, I've been a consistent cannabis user. There have been times where I've quit for a year, another time where I quit for 2 years, and that was because of legal issues, but it gave me the perspective that quitting something that I've done for a couple decades overnight, cold turkey, is not that big of a deal. Cannabis really has no significant withdrawal effects. In fact, it's just an amazing plant in the benefits that it can have and the lack of negative side effects it can have. But there are some, of course. It took me years to realize the mental side of it, that it can actually cause anxiety or panic attacks in some people, and that the effects of cannabis can change over time. But generally they're not very dramatic, and generally cannabis is considered a safe herb and has been. Now, I don't want to go back through the details of why it became illegal in the first place, but if you look back at Henry Anslinger and or was it Harry Anslinger? Yeah, I think it was. Anyway, back then they were trying to promote, they wanted to promote prohibition by convincing everyone that there was a racial element, that crazy black men were smoking pot and dancing like maniacs, and oh, all those damn jazz musicians, they're all smoking pot. And so it really wasn't an issue of cannabis being a danger, but it was a competition, and it was a competition on profits. Even back then, the hemp industry could have shown through in this nation and really done something wonderful. I remember in high school writing a report about cannabis and saying, did you know that an acre of cannabis can provide 4 times as much paper as an acre of trees, and that they're renewable every year? And those were just some of those facts everybody threw around. It didn't seem to matter. It doesn't matter if the seeds make some of the healthiest oil and a great source of omega-3s. On and on down the line, basically people are fighting to keep it legal by giving all these small reasons, rather than saying, because it's a plant, and because we should be entitled to consume it as we please. But my whole youth growing up, it was always illegal. And I remember sitting with my friends and saying, God, can you imagine what it would be like if pot was legal and you could just buy it at the corner store? And I even remember reading how Marlboro had owned a patent. I don't even know if this was true because I never confirmed it. But when we were kids, there was a lot of, we didn't have the internet, okay? So there were a lot of word-of-mouth rumors that went around. And it was fun because you didn't have anybody that could confirm it, But that Marlboro had a patent on cannabis, on joint, basically, and they called them Marlboro Greens, and that, once cannabis was legal, they were going to take over. Even back then, when I wanted cannabis legal, I really processed it in my head and said, you realize what's going to happen. It's going to be monopolized. And this is what we're seeing now. I think it was Minnesota that was trying to pass a law to legalize cannabis, and the people voted against it, not because they didn't want cannabis, but because the people who were promoting the legalization were one organization, one company, who wanted to dominate and own the market. And a condition of legalization was that they were the only company that could supply it. This is happening all around the country. I live in Washington State, and we were one of the first states to legalize it. It was us in Colorado at the same time. And I remember at that time saying, great, now what? It's just going to go downhill. It's going to be harder for the cannabis growers to... I could give you 1,000 reasons why legal cannabis is a bad idea, as far as putting rules and regulations on it, like they do with tobacco and alcohol. Legal is one thing, but controlled substance, it's still a controlled substance. So I understand that people want to get what they're paying for, and that there's a lot of false labeling and marketing, and hopefully this would weed out a lot of the people who use bad growing practices, but it doesn't. Because now, like in Washington, we have to get a 502, I think it is, a grower's card. And in order to do that, you have to pass all these legal hurdles. Well then, when you have a massive grow going on, people are willing to use just about anything to get rid of bugs, mold, mites, whatever it might be. And fortunately, they're supposed to put what they're using as insecticides on their packaging, but not all of them do. And there can be trace amounts. Even things like neem oil that are considered not too harmful have been found now when you smoke it can cause major problems. So try not to get too far off track here. Recently, the first legal cannabis product was approved for sale in the US. It's called Epidiolex. I did a video about it a while back. It disgusted me then and it disgusts me now. It's a pharmaceutical firm from, it's not GW, I think that's in Canada. There's another one in there. It's a pharmaceutical industry over in the UK. So it was a foreign entity, a UK pharmaceutical company. They were the same ones that created, I think it was Sativex, which was a THC spray for, cannabis patients. Now they came up with this, supposedly a CBD, the first legal CBD product. I did research on it. If you look at the side effects on it, I have the belief that this is either a synthetic version of CBD or CBD combined with a lot of other compounds, but I know for a fact that it's not just CBD. But they're selling it in the US now. It's been approved, and I don't know if I think it's on the shelf yet, but it will be. And so if you can afford $35,000 a year to take it regularly, well, good for you. Even if your insurance pays for it, this is just way over the top and way more than it should be. Anybody who's growing plants in their own garage for medicine could have a lifetime's worth of CBD, and in the eyes of these companies, it's millions of dollars worth because they don't care. They'll charge whatever they can. So it's still a controlled substance. Now it's just controlled by other companies. In fact, a Canadian company that they are legally, Canada is set to legalize. Of course, they're going to, they're already dominating and trying to, own the whole market too up there. Basically, whenever there's billions of dollars exchanging hands for something that people use regularly, there will always be somebody there to step up and try to take the money. So, what do we do? I mean, when we have legal cannabis at the store, but we're paying most of our money to taxes in the state. When we were paying, say, $40 for an eighth of an ounce of cannabis, we thought, well, shouldn't it go down to like $10? Of course, it's a plant. It grows easily. It's a simple plant to grow. But no, there's still, you can get some crappy weed for that for $20, but you still pay 40 or even more for the really high top shelf stuff. Why? Well, because they can, and because people will pay it. And it's not because the stores are greedy, because the stores, they barely make it by. It depends on the place, the state, and the store, and the situation, but many of them are just making a few cents on a sale because they have so much in taxes to pay on top of that. The growers themselves are losing their ass because they can only accept a certain amount. So it's a confusing issue, and not one that I really have any answers to, or that I'm here to say this is what we should do, but rather for all the people fighting for legalization, if you're fighting for legalization in your state, pay attention to the wording on the bill. Be aware of who's trying to dominate and take control of your industry. And just as any other consumer, be a wary and responsible consumer. Don't just buy any old cannabis. Buy from a farm that is reputable, or a grower that's reputable in your area. And for me personally, I still support the little guys. I buy, at least half of my weed from a friend of mine that I have for 10 years. And so I know that the money goes directly to him and to the growers. The thing is, when you're putting money directly into the sellers and growers' pocket, the state complains, well, then no taxes are made. But it doesn't matter. The more money a person has, the more they're willing to spend. Like within the circles of, people who have a lot of money that they make off of, substances, they have to spend it on something, and generally will spend it in their communities, which puts more money into the pockets of their communities. So, the idea that having, the Wild West of cannabis growers behind closed doors is some kind of a damage to society is a ludicrous one. And I've argued that point with my own probation officer years ago, when I got busted because somebody ratted me out for growing cannabis, coincidentally enough. And I remember when I was in there, and she kept, she was saying, why do you keep getting, dirty piss tests? She didn't want to send me to jail. She wanted me to just be off probation and done. And I said, because I feel like I should have the freedom of an individual to consume what I choose, and it's not harming anyone. And I made the mistake of going on to argue with her about it, but she said, all this corruption and the cartels, and look at what it's doing to these people, and people die. And I say, the only reason that happens is because of prohibition. It's not the cannabis itself. Just like with any substance, if you remove regulations, rules, and laws, it doesn't cause more problems. It eliminates the problem of the black market to an extent. So I'm hoping that that the federal government, the FDA, the DEA, will step back and realize that we need to just make all forms of CBD legal. I can say, hey, it's okay if we want to keep THC illegal, just to be cautious, or keep it controlled. So be it. We control alcohol and tobacco, but there's no excuse to control CBD, and there's absolutely no excuse to regulate hemp-derived CBD. And it's my belief that ruderalis, or hemp, variety of cannabis, which isn't very psychoactive at all, which can be grown for fiber, I believe it should all be grown. And the hemp, the farm bill should be completely upheld, and that farmers should all be allowed to grow non-psychoactive cannabis. We're smarter than that. We've come a long way. At least some of us have. We still have people like Jeff Sessions in there, running the show as the Attorney General, telling us that pot smokers are bad people and all drugs should be illegal. We need to get rid of the old judgmental attitudes. And, even though I don't agree with all substances and I don't use them, I don't berate people who do. Just like the person who likes to go out and spend a lot of money shopping, or the person who decides that they want to work out and build their muscles up super strong. You choose what you want to do with your time, with your health, with your body and your mind. And if it's harming no one else, I say go for it. So those are my thoughts on cannabis. Some of them, I have endless thoughts on it. But for me personally, I've cut down quite a bit over the years. Not purposefully or trying, it's just that I've kind of lost interest in smoking all the time. I used to smoke, every morning, not right away, but it was just kind of an all-day thing, and I've learned to just, it's just not for me. It shows that cannabis isn't the kind of drug where it's some gateway drug that makes you want to do other harder drugs. We've disputed that and got rid of that a long time ago. It is the attitude of the person that creates drug-seeking behavior, not the drug itself. We've been talking about gateway drugs for far too long, not realizing that the reason why people become addicted isn't from the drugs themselves, but from the escape from the loneliness and the pain of being alive. And that although rats in a cage will choose cocaine over food, if they're put in with companions, they won't. So find a friend if you have an addiction and you have an issue with that, but we can't just throw out cannabis because a few people have problems with it, or because this person had a psychotic reaction. I consider it generally benign and safe, and that's all I got. I'll talk to y'all later. Take care. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you.